There we go. Audio is back. Stagnation, crypto warriors, top of the morning to you. Heavy morning this one. Hope everyone is having an amazing one. We're going to be taking a look at some Bitcoin TA, very light TA, nothing too crazy. And of course, we're going to be going over some Bitcoin updates here. Someone at MSNBC, CNBC, wrote an article after an interview with someone at Standard Chartered. Bitcoin going to 5K. What a thing. Well, let me pull up the chart here first of all, make sure everything is running smooth before I just get rolling with this thing. By the way, Double O is not joining us today. The man is in the motherland in Nigeria, hanging with the forces of nature, if you would say. Let's see. Yeah, this looks good. I think we're live. Amazing. Let's get rolling here. So, Bitcoin has been moving up, currently trading at 17,218 bucks. It's an interesting move there. Is this the bottom? This is usually where everyone likes to make that prediction, but I'll leave it alone. We have Nick Up in the comments. Peace, brother. Good morning to you. Top of the morning. Romy Rom, Grand Rising champion. How you feeling today? Personally, I'm feeling awesome, and I think Bitcoin is doing its thing. As you know, I'm all about Bitcoin or something like that, despite the sad times. So with no further ado, let's jump right into it here. I'm just gonna share my screen. Jeez, brother, get your life together. Oh no, that's not going as expected. Apologies, folks. We're running a bit laggy this morning. All right, here we go. So Bitcoin currently trading at $17,225. Over the past couple of days, well, let's pull it back a little bit more here. We can see that we've been in this falling wedge, right, over the past month, really. We have these double bottoms here. We saw a bottom at 15,500 area. That the first time we saw that was around where are we there? November 22nd, around that time frame. Then we saw this double bottom, at least that bottom hit again around November. That was November 12th, sorry, 21st actually. And the first time was November 9th. Now, currently, we are in an upward trajectory of some sort. Now, I believe that this might move up close to, we know that the resistance, at least the first resistance point we see here, is around $18,000, right? We're doing this live. Here we go. So around $18,000, I believe that's where we maybe see a bounce. If not, of course, we have the next resistance point all the way up there at 21K. But will Bitcoin make it to 21K in the next month or so? What do you guys think about that one? Let me know in the comments. So currently, obviously just watching this. Now I had some limit orders and I'm in a weird place because I keep wondering to myself, should I buy my Bitcoins now because this will not pull back, or should I just be patient? What would you do in this situation, right? So moving on then, let's take a look at some Bitcoin news this morning. There's a couple different interesting things going on here. For one, we have an article from CNBC here, right? And it says Bitcoin could plunge 70% to $5,000. Standard Chartered predicts. We don't know who Standard Chartered is. I should actually probably look that up. But Standard Chartered predicts impossible 2023 surprise. Now, obviously, I saw this article and I just wanted to do it because I thought it was fun, interesting. I don't believe that $5,000 Bitcoin is a realistic thing to be expecting, but who knows? Given everything that we've been seeing It says Bitcoin Maxi. Actually, let me slow down here and take some look at some of the comments before we keep pushing forward. Um, Rome says, "What is the top three stable coins?" The top three stable coins. That is actually a good question. I should think about that one before I respond. Top three crashing stable coins. I mean, you have Terra Luna, which is horrible. But I think for top three stable coins, that is a tough one, because when it comes to the situation with Tether, and I'm going to speak a little bit about Tether here in a little bit. Tether seems to be performance-wise over time, right? Tether seems to have been holding its own over the years. Then you have USDC as well, seems to be holding its own, but we know that that is straight up CBDC, of course. The third one, I'm not really sure because I don't really explore them that much. So I guess let's put the actual US dollar there, which is actually a horrible thing to say, but you know, it is in there. Excuse me. Andrew Ajay says BTC Maxi. Well, that's referring to me. This is true, sir. I'm somewhat of a BTC Maxi. Can't even deny it. He also says, "We love Niger." Yeah, Niger boys, stand up now. We see y'all. So anyway, I just thought this article here was very interesting, funny. It says Bitcoin could drop to 5,000 next year in market surprise that investors are underpricing, according to Standard Chartered. If that level is reached, it will mark roughly 70% plunge from Monday's price of just over 17,000 for one Bitcoin. Usually when I see articles like this, right, I get it. We have the whole situation with FTX, where we saw the market absolutely dump. During this process as well, we also learned that various things like ridiculous leverage has been happening in the space, which makes sense as to what everything has been happening with everything that's been going on. However, I did this one Bitcoin TA chart a while back, and it kind of goes all the way back to, I believe it was a Coinbase chart, which picks up Bitcoin from as far back as, I think when the first candle showed up on that chart. It was multiple years ago. I have to go back and check. But we can see that Bitcoin clearly has this pattern of rising and pulling back 80% multiple times. We have seen multiple 75 to 80% pullbacks on Bitcoin, but then it keeps moving up from there. So I would wonder, where do they get this assumption from? Because one thing is, and something that I would hope that everyone is also paying attention to, especially in this market cycle, is that there's a lot of experts out there, but no one knows for sure. So it's definitely something to proceed with caution there. All right, we'll take some comments here and then we'll move on to the next article, which is actually the ECB, led by Christine Lagarde, one of my least favorite people, but you know, hey, it is what it is. Now, Romy says, "I doubt it would fall that low. Too many whales involved." I agree with you. And I think one other thing to also look at is just on-chain analysis, right? We love TA. We love doing technical analysis. We do it all the time. It gives you an idea of just price action, right? The movement of the price, the possibilities of where the price of Bitcoin can go, or any asset for that matter. However, one of the unique things with Bitcoin is this fact that you have the ability to track everything that is happening on the chain itself. So by looking at on-chain analysis, whether you're using stuff like CryptoQuant, or I forgot the other one, where you could see wallets and things like that, it also gives you a story of what is happening with the wallets. And we can see that we've done multiple shows where we showed that, especially through this bear market, there's been more Bitcoin wallets created, more hodlers, more new people into the space as well in general. So when we see numbers like this, I would ask myself, how do we get there? Now, moving on to the next piece which we have here. This is from the ECB. And the reason I'm bringing this one up here is because I think for a group of leaders, people who are supposed to be reliable sources of information, it appears that these guys are kind of just following behind whatever happens and creating a narrative from it. So, for example, a couple months ago, when we had Terra Luna, or Luna, the Luna stablecoin crashing, all right, falling out of the sky, the Bank of International Settlements came out with a whole PDF. It's almost like they were waiting for this, using the Terra Luna situation to essentially sell CBDCs, right? They use that to liken the whole crypto space to scams, which I guess it is, but a lot of it is, right? But this is where they take this opportunity to push CBDCs, and I think the reason I speak about this, and the reason why I think when you talk to most people who are heavily into Bitcoin, why we're annoyed about this is because crappy coins and crappy projects in the crypto space, right, only detract from the ultimate goal for all of us, which is to be able to have that better transparency and financial freedom with a superior asset, if you will. So ECB says Bitcoin is artificially propped up, should or shouldn't be legitimized, right? Now, Bitcoin is being artificially propped up and should not be legitimized by regulators or financial companies, as it is more akin to gambling, the European Central Bank said on Wednesday. It is interesting that they come up with these things, of course, after the whole FTX situation, which in many cases, I think that has been good for the space because there's been a lot of cleansing, removing all the leverage, because at some point it is bound to happen, right? If you've listened to many financial advisors, they all seem to agree that extreme leverage is not the way to be going. So, but with people like the ECB, I mean, what is their ground to stand on making such claims, right? Because we're looking at the same people, or most recently, Christine Lagarde, head of the ECB, who said they don't know where inflation came from. At this point, it is absolutely ridiculous, atrocious, the thought process of these people. And the fact that they think the general society actually falls for these things. Absolutely ridiculous. Now, here is where we dive back into the stablecoin situation. As we know, and this is also speaking to the stablecoin situation you brought up there, Andrew. So ever since the whole FTX situation, implosion, if we call it that, there's been this massive rise of investors asking for proof of reserves, which, look, I agree. I think there should be definitely some proof of reserves for these companies at this point. But the spirit of I guess, blockchain, or I guess the spirit of Bitcoin is really all we can liken it to, right? Having that decentralized platform where everyone can hold their own value is obviously been perverted. That is already long gone, except you're holding Bitcoin, but we'll forget about that for now. So there's been this rising demand for proof of reserves, and multiple companies, which is really what it is, companies, not cryptos, have come out showing their proof of reserves and so on and so forth. But in the case of Tether, the Tether CEO says this is already listed on their site. There is audits of these things, but there's been more push to actually prove that they still have these strong reserves. And I believe one of the reasons for this, actually, let me pull up this one. So one of the reasons for this is because most recently, especially after the whole shebang with FTX, Tether has eliminated commercial paper from reserves in a transparent push. So Tether has completely eliminated commercial paper from its reserves. The largest stablecoin announced the milestone on Monday. Well, today in a blog post. This is a bit of an old article, disclaimer there, actually from October 13th, right? So just kind of tying in the point here. Now, commercial paper is unsecured short-term debt issued by a corporation. Tether had previously said it would reduce the commercial paper in its holdings and has gradually done so this year. So I guess the main concern is if some of this lending, or Tether has exposure to the FTX situation and how that will affect the coin itself. Now, this is something I would say it's worth paying attention to, keeping an eye out for it. And this way, I mean, if anything was going to happen, you don't get caught up in it. So at this point in time, if we're talking about top 3 stable coins, I would say the whole space is in a bit of a limbo state, right? Tether seemed like a pretty solid coin. I used it, still use it for a very long time now. I've been using Tether instead on things like KuCoin. So definitely something to be paying attention to, and we'll see how that pans out. Now, before we go, it is worth saying the Tether CEO actually came out to defend the firm, right? Saying exactly the same things, which I was mentioning here. He claims the firm undergoes auditing frequently over a few months. So I guess people like more solid evidence of this auditing, who is doing the auditing and what are the reserves. This practice will enable government authorities to probe the process involved in their funds. And of course, I believe on their website, they should have these reserves also published there. This is a short video, which I'll share here, and then we'll take some comments before we close this one out, of the Tether CEO responding to the call for reserves, if you will.
Sort of come from the fallout of FTX have now been put onto Tether, though, frankly, there have been questions about Tether for some time. I want to just read you 2 sentences. This is from the Wall Street Journal. You've seen the story. Tether, which is incorporated, as you know, in the British Virgin Islands, doesn't publish audited financial statements or complete balance sheet, leaving outsiders with an incomplete picture of the company's health. And there's a gentleman, Peter Crane. Peter is the president of Crane Data. He says, I've been skeptical and in disbelief that that is you, can get away with the lack of disclosure and with limited transparency. If you do have reserves, why don't you show them? And so I'll ask you the question, why don't you?
Well, what I can say is in the last 8 years of Tether's operating history, they've always redeemed every token for exactly $1. I sold the company in the end of 2015. And the principals have continued to operate that with, in my opinion, to the absolute best of their ability and with the best risk mitigation tactics in the industry. It has withstood the test of time.
So why do you think that then the questions persist as they do about what's really going on and what really is backing these stable coins?
Well, Tether does offer on its website proof of its reserves, or actually audits every few months. They post different audits on where all that cash is currently how it's being invested. Right now, people still question it, and these questions are okay. And the industry as a whole is going to become more and more transparent due to these recent failures of FTX and BlockFi and these other companies. And so that is really good for the industry moving forward.
So
shaky for sure, but we'll take it. This is the Tether CEO responding to the claims of, I guess, lack of confidence in its reserves. Now, I would say everyone just has to tread with caution, because one thing we know for sure throughout the space, as we've seen, these guys all say it's going to be okay, then it's not okay. BlockFi, for example, right? I mean, pretty much every exchange that has fallen started by saying everything will be okay. And then we find out it's not going to be okay for sure. So with that being said, I would say top 3 stable coins, man, who knows, man? I think once there is some sort of clarity and really regulations in the crypto space, it's really up to anyone. Final comment here before we roll out. Rome says they are trying to run all the fish out so they can take over all the wealth again. This is true. I mean, we've seen this happen time and time again, where you have the big fish, whether it's through fraud and whatever else, using the media to manipulate the markets to drive out everyone. And then once they buy and they can push it again to grow whatever investment it is, and then, leave everyone holding the bag at the top. 5252 Crypto says, not stable. Not stable. Already mentioned it. Smoke, there is fire. Where there is smoke, there is fire. This is for sure. Right? I think at this point in time, we cannot really put anything past these guys. Anything is possible, minus that 5K Bitcoin thing. But I think one thing is very important to remember here. There is a lot of unnecessary coins out there, a lot of things that call themselves projects that would change the future that are not necessary. We always have to remember what the main goal of all this blockchain technology is, right? What the main goal of Bitcoin is, which is to resolve a money problem, the biggest issue that we're having in our society. So it's really to each and every one of us to educate ourselves, right? We know the Bitcoin conference in Africa, the first Bitcoin conference in Africa in Ghana is going on last week. And one of the things that came out from there, or at least something I saw from that, was a center open to help with Bitcoin education in Ghana. These are the sort of things that I believe we need, right? More education and getting each and everyone holding their own coins, right? Self-custody, and being on a more decentralized system, one that is not run by the ECB and central banks alike. So I think that is it for today, ladies and gentlemen. 9:23, man. Ugh, I talk too much, man. Until next time, right? Double O is in Nigeria for the next 2 weeks. I think he's going to be sending us some details on what is happening with Bitcoin in Nigeria soon as he gets some rest. And that should be absolutely incredible. Before I go, one more comment here from Lisa. She says, what are your thoughts on developing DeFi apps on Stacks using Clarity? Can we have a true decentralized system? I don't know if we can have a true decentralized system. I would speak on the decentralization part there. As far as the DeFi apps, I'll come back to that in a bit. I don't know if we can have a true decentralized system, but we can have a more decentralized system, as decentralized as possible, with an adequate amount of transparency and privacy and serious security for sure, right? If you look into the trilemma, right, this is I guess 3 pillars of blockchain, right? You have security, scalability, or privacy. Bitcoin leans more towards that security side and privacy as well, which foregoes that scalability. But now we have things like the Lightning Network, which would take me to the next point, which you have there, DeFi on apps. And on the Lightning Network, Lightning is proving to be that second layer on Bitcoin where we can develop multiple applications. Many cool things can happen there. I think if we can build on that level and create things in that space that are pretty much the same things that are being offered by all the centralized platforms, maybe we can have something that is more decentralized and decent for everyone. But I'm not going to keep going. That will be all. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, Brazen out.